And we are live. What is up, everyone? Thank you for jumping in with us today. We are talking from roofs to riches. We're going to talk about how you can double your revenue by adding solar to your business. Got one of my good friends here. Known Ryan for a long time. We were joking before we went live. We've got so much more technology and support on the back end of our technology. We used to just do these things where we jump into a Zoom and it'd just be Ryan and I, but joined today by Ryan Shantz, CEO of SumoQuote. Ryan, thanks for jumping in with us today.
Mr. Gogan, good to see you as always, sir. Hope things are all going great down with CompanyCam there.
Absolutely. Things are good. And we've got, such a great partnership with SumoQuote, and Ryan and I have been talking for a while, and I think it's pretty common in the roofing space that we've been just kind of hearing more and more about solar and, learning more about it. And the more Ryan and I have talked about it, the more we realized, hey, there's such an opportunity here. And Ryan's really taken that next step and kind of becoming an expert in the solar space. Written a book, which is awesome. We'll dive into that a little bit more and tell everyone how they can get a copy of that book. But just it seemed like a perfect fit for us as partners to kind of come together and produce some content around how you can, add solar as an offering to your roofing business. And while we're kind of letting a few people trickle in here before we get into the meat and potatoes of the content, let's just do a quick familiarization with the software we're using today. There's two ways in which you can interact with us. If you look, there's a chat feature and a questions feature. Let's go ahead and familiarize ourselves with chat first. Let us know in chat first where you're joining us from, and two questions on top of that. Where you're joining us from, have you added solar to your book of business? And do you know how much you pay in your area for kilowatt hours? So go ahead and drop those two things in the chat. Give that a test run. While you're doing that, you're going to see that this kind of piles up rather quickly. If you have a question throughout the webinar and you say, hey, I want to get this question answered, try that in the questions tab. So don't practice it right now. The only reason I say don't practice it is we will make sure we get those answered. They don't go anywhere. They don't get buried. We will definitely make sure we get that answered. Maybe in the moment, maybe at the end when we do Q&A. But if you have a specific question for myself or our expert, in this case, Ryan, use that in the questions tab. So we've got coast to coast. I see Southern California. We've got New York. We've got multiple in Ohio. Got a Virginia. Steve even knows peak kilowatt hour pricing there. This is awesome. Ryan, you are.
Oh man, yeah, 55 cents. Ouch, Steve. Like that's as high as it comes out there, kind of thing. So, yeah, I love seeing that people know sort of what they're paying and what those rates are out there, because those rates are a key part of that conversation with homeowner as you're really consulting with them on their energy and whether they want to own it, whether they want to sort of rent it, and how they're gonna get their energy for their home there. And now it's not just their home, it's their pool, it's their EV, it's all sorts of other things. But yeah, it sounds like Steve's got a lot of experience in this, which is great. I know, and it's interesting, it's fascinating because I'm up in Canada here, and our area, Alberta, we're kind of like the Texas of Canada, like tons of energy and oil and gas and everything else in our area here. My home, it's the lowest. I pay the lowest that I've heard for anybody out there. It's about 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity here. So it's very different region by region. But when you're talking peak prices like what Steve's dealing with there at 55 cents, that's almost like Hawaii, where Hawaii I think is on average 44 cents kilowatt hour kind of thing there. So we've got some more numbers coming in. Dallas Fort Worth, 12 to 17 cents sort of thing in there. Oklahoma, a little bit different, 9 to 12 and a half. I heard somebody say it was Adam Bensman, who's a great roofing and solar coach out there. But he talks about if you're paying under 10 cents kilowatt hour, solar just really doesn't make that much sense typically from an ROI perspective. So I thought it was interesting to try and get some of those guidelines there as well. Anyways, this is great. It's good to have everyone here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to kind of turn the keys over to you, Ryan. I like to use the sports analogy here. I'm gonna be the color guy here with this. Ryan, let you be the expert in the play-by-play. So if you want to go ahead, and I think we've got our screen shared. If you want to blow that up, and let's fire this thing off.
Yeah, sounds great. So, I mean, we've kind of already dipped our toe in here a little bit. We've got some people offering solar, some people aren't yet. Solar is really interesting. And the reason we got really interested at SumoQuote is we were focused so heavily on working with roofing contractors. And when that new roof's getting installed, it really is that point in time that you should be talking about solar. Nobody should be putting solar on a 15 to 20-year-old roof. Like that just shouldn't be sold out there to a consumer. We have a significant opportunity, those of us that have been in roofing for a long time, to bring in another big trade as a part of what we're offering out there, and something that's pretty significant. We're going to talk about how solar is quite similar to insurance sales in some regards. So we'll go through that a bit today. But yeah, basically to give you the lay of the land, what we're going to be talking about for the next little while here. We're going to talk about solar as a diversification strategy. And there's some interesting things on what to focus on when you're diversifying and why solar makes sense within that. I already sort of touched on solar sales kind of being insurance sales 2.0 and the similarities there. And so if you're a company that offers or that engages with insurance sales, as a lot of companies do, and they know there's a lot of money that can be made from that, if you've been able to adopt insurance sales, we think you can adopt solar as well. And we'll talk through a bunch of that, and then we'll talk about the opportunity. And at the end, we're going to give a demo so you can see a bit of how it works and stuff like that. So, yeah, let's dive into this because we've got a lot to cover today. So, the roofing company that I'm a partner with, it's 3 roofing companies and a restoration company and a technology company and a Dr. Vinyl franchise. We've kind of got a bunch of things. Now we've been pretty successful at building out a group of companies with a bunch of different trades and things that complement each other. But we've also had a couple of misses on there. We tried to get into landscaping because we were serving property managers. That didn't take. We tried to get into design build because we owned a restoration company and had all the construction trades. That didn't take. So we're going to go through here a bit of what does healthy diversification look like and why, right? So the first one is the company wants more revenue. And that's a pretty obvious one. Like we're all looking for that, right? The second one is we want less economic risk. And that's where this insurance conversation will get really interesting. Michael and I were talking beforehand, and we were talking about what insurance storms or what storms can produce for insurance claims, and how it can just feel like a fire hose, like overnight. And Michael, I'm sure you've heard from contractors out there just how overwhelmed they get trying to scale up and adjust their processes and everything with the storm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you see it when storms hit. Denver's been absolutely pounded with storms this year, and the number of very large and successful roofing businesses that I'm familiar with in Denver that are all of a sudden hiring large amounts of sales reps, and that is that fire hose. And it's like, we don't have enough buckets for this right now. Like, how are we going to scale this up? And I love that piece of, like, when we get into this, insurance sales 2.0 and how you kind of control the pace of that fire hose with solar versus Mother Nature, where we don't know, may storm consistent. We may go 7, 8, 9 years like kind of Colorado did without a large storm there. And
yeah, oh, absolutely. And it's not just hiring and stuff like that. It's your cash, how to manage your cash through something like that. Like you're putting out piles of cash as you're trying to get all this work done and everything else. and a storm actually can sink some businesses out there. So when you've got these massive peaks and valleys, there's quite a risk, economic risk with that. Whereas solar, we'll talk about how it's kind of much more controllable, how you can choose if you want to market to past clients or not, or how many past clients where you've done their roof just in recent years and stuff. It's an interesting one on diversification here, talking about sort of your core business, that it's stabilized during a decline. It doesn't need to be in a decline, but you kind of get to a certain size and it's hard to take that next big jump up as you go through. And the last one here that I really like, it's really all about exploiting potential synergies. And so what are you already doing? What do you already have your fingers in? What are you already engaged with? And something that you can maximize profit and growth with while minimizing risk. And solar is a really fascinating opportunity for roofing contractors because of that. There's so many potential synergies in there. And we'll keep sort of walking through and exploring that stuff as we go. So let's dive in a little bit to this concept on comparing solar sales to insurance sales. Again, it's this thing that so many contractors, roofing contractors out there, they're comfortable with insurance sales because they've been doing it for years. And in fact, they probably couldn't think about running their business without insurance sales now to a degree. As we look at this and how it's so similar to solar, one of those first things is there's massive revenue opportunity, right? Your average roofing or your average insurance job is quite a bit bigger than your average retail roof. And then your average solar job is even bigger than your average insurance job. Like there's a large chunk of revenue that you can gain from adding solar. And insurance is quite similar, just in how quickly and how much that can add up there. The second one is here, there's a unique set of knowledge. So Gogan, you'd probably know, like insurance sales, what are people using for putting their quotes together or calculating pricing with insurance sales?
Yeah, so you hear it all the time, and there's people that have specifically built businesses around Xactimate and how to leverage Xactimate price book and those kind of things. And so yeah, you have ACV, RCV, you have all those terminology, like terms that you have to learn and become an expert with, and then you have the different softwares that you have to be familiar with and know how to leverage to get these claims paid. And that's probably my favorite similarity, that it's also a large difference that we'll get into here in a minute about the difference between solar sales and insurance sales.
Yeah, and I queued you up one early there on that one on the technology, but yeah, the unique set of knowledge. I like that you started touching on it there. With insurance sales, you have to have a unique set of knowledge. So you have to know your RCV, you have to know your ACV, you have to know what an adjuster is and what their role is, and independent adjusters and public adjusters, and a bit of policy language sometimes, depending on what region you're in. But there's all these things that is a unique set of knowledge that you didn't need to know just with selling a retail roof. On the solar side, it's the same type of thing. You need to understand, kilowatt versus kilowatt hours and offsets and site surveys and all of these things. And so there's a unique set of language or knowledge that you need to understand with that. This is the one, Gogan, that I was queuing you up for a step early there, but specific technology, and you touched on it, Xactimate. Like for insurance sales, you need to learn a unique, specific set of technology, which is typically Xactimate. For solar, it's going to be design, and you're going to have that design tool, and we'll talk through and show you some of that stuff. And then, but really, I mean, the beautiful part right now is you've got companies like CompanyCam that's queued up for how you can make sure that the properties are being documented properly for solar. You've got SumoQuote that does the presentation and incorporates everything that you do with that. And you've got EagleView right now that's launched their True Design tool that already crushes it in roofing measurements. And now with their shade analysis, gives you the most accurate shade data out there, which is really powerful. So you've got a specific set of technology. Thankfully, now with solar, you can use all the same tools that you were using with roofing. And the last one here, there's some operational adjustments. Like you need to understand if you're adding on solar, there's some operational things that are going to be slightly different, but not drastically different as you go through some of this stuff. right? So if it's easier to sort of think of it like this, kind of that side-by-side comparison, I would make the argument here that solar and insurance are more similar than retail and insurance, right? Like as you're going through the number of trades, you're gonna have multiple trades as soon as you are doing insurance or solar, right? Which you don't necessarily have with retail. Your revenue, like there's a massive step up from your standard typical roofing job out there. By the way, that 11,500, that I'm pulling from Forbes magazine. They gave that data from 2022, looking at nationwide data. So every little town and county across the US sort of thing. And that's where they had pulled that from. Your tech stack, like you're talking about a single data point, kind of that measurement or the measurement in photo sort of thing is all you really need to get going to put a quote together and sell something. And whereas with insurance and solar, yeah, there's third-party data. You need to pull in what's their utility provider, what consumption do they have, how do you analyze that against the production that you can put together versus the financing costs. And like there's a lot of third-party data that is in the back end that you just need to be aware of, and then how to talk through that stuff. And with insurance, it's Xactimate or it's policy language. It's these other third-party data pieces that you've got to understand within. Sales, like solar and insurance, they're both more complex than retail. I love retail roofs because the homeowner's ready to pay out-of-pocket cash today and just queue them up, and you can run that roof. You can have it done in a week, and you can get paid. It is very simple, but you have to sell 3-4 times more to get the same volume as with these other ones. But you can use your same sales team, production, you're using sub labor, retail, you might get away with some in-house still. And then the sales process, like, it is a slightly different sales process that you're taking them through. So, Gogan, anything on this page that kind of stands out to you as you're thinking about the contractors that you've had conversations with on this stuff as well, or whether it's revenue, process, tech stack, anything that you're seeing here?
Yeah, I think the two big ones that I would want to draw attention to are at the very bottom there, the sales process. Yes, it's a little bit longer maybe of a sales process with, solar than retail, but you still have that one call close, possibility there. And I think that's a important thing to draw attention to when you go back up to the revenue and you look 11,500, 35,000 plus. Solar just makes sense there. The other thing, and this is just, very common when you compare solar to insurance, and I talk to a lot of insurance contractors on the daily, and it's repeatedly, hey, we're getting denied for these things because you have that third party in terms of the carrier who wants to make sure that they know exactly what's getting paid for, why it's getting paid for, what should or shouldn't get paid for. You kind of have the luxury of removing that unless you're doing an insurance solar job at the same time. But if you're strictly doing a retail job that's going to add solar to that, you don't have to worry about that carrier and dealing with, that headache, which I think every contractor that I talk to in roofing would be glad to eliminate as much of that headache as possible.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's courses taught out there on how to try and avoid going through and dealing with adjusters, and instead trying to run insurance with more of a retail type structure. So, yeah, there's a lot of complexity that adjuster and those policies and stuff can add to the process. So now, as you're thinking about the process, though, again, just visually to sort of put it in an easy to understand way, like part of why there's so many potential synergies with adding solar to roofing is that process is so incredibly similar, right? We're talking about getting a lead and then doing an inspection with roofing, and solar, it's going to be called a site survey. And CompanyCam, I know you guys have a great tool that can assist with that. That's our very next slide as we're going through here. So, but then, then it's measurements. And again, the solar equivalent of measurements is going to be measuring the shade data, or it's going to be doing the design sort of thing, right? Which then is into a proposal and then is into an installation. And solar, you're always going to be doing permitting and CAD drawings. And there's some of those things that are slightly different, but all really similar. Same people, same time, same, site inspections and stuff like this. It's just gathering slightly more information and being aware of slightly different things as you go through that. Gogan, how long have you guys had checklists for? Because this is something that is incredibly powerful and helpful in helping a roofing company adopt solar.
Yeah, so checklists are fairly new. These templated checklists are very new in terms of you can, and plug for SumoQuote here. SumoQuote has a community checklist available for solar. You can start from scratch, the blank slate, and you can do that yourself as well. But what I love about this is you can have the solar inspection, the site survey to make sure you're getting the meter location, you're getting a picture of the electric bill, some of those things. But thinking about that previous slide and the similarities between the roof inspection and how it's like, oh, we're just gathering more information. You can actually have your salesperson, you could build this solar inspection right into your typical roof inspection, and you can have them collecting all of the data at the same time, which obviously Ryan and I would both encourage. Collecting all that data, whether you do it with 2 checklists or a single checklist, is kind of up to you on how you structure that. But what's great about these checklists is you have free reign to make them your own. You save them as a template, and now you have that consistency on every job. Ryan and I were talking offline about how, you miss one of these photos. With roofing, you could maybe get by. Like, I don't have a photo, but I can potentially get by. For solar, having all that information is that much more important. Like, where is the main electrical panel? Where's the meter location? I have to make another trip out if I miss those photos. And so putting your sales team in a spot to succeed with these checklists is so valuable.
Yeah, and I mean the nice thing is, or as you're building this out and setting this up, if you're adopting solar, I would say try and hit that solar checklist every single time, even if the homeowner hasn't expressed interest in it, or if they've flat out said, "Yeah, we're not doing solar right now," because you don't know if a year from now, 2 years from now, you might be able to warm them up with a drip campaign from your CRM or from your marketing to get them interested in solar. And then you've got that data again, right? You've already taken the photo of the panel. If you're inside the house and you're going into the attic and you're looking for any wood rot or something as part of your roofing inspection, make sure you've got the rafters in there. Ask them for a quick second to go downstairs and get a photo of their panels, so you've got that. Just gather that extra information so you've got it on hand just in case that comes up in the future. So yeah, getting as much of this stuff as possible is super helpful. Let's go and let's keep rolling through here. I know this is the part that a lot of people, this is kind of where their mind jumps to, right? Let's get into the dollars and cents of this. So solar, like, it can really add 3 times more profit to a roofing job. Again, aside from insurance, I just can't think of another comparable that gives you as much potential upside with as little downside as looking to adopt solar. And one of these really big advantages that you've got is you already have that lead. You don't have to pay anything for a solar lead because you've already acquired that for your roof, right? There's solar sales orgs or solar installers, solar companies. Like, there's organizations out there. There's, just like roofing, there's going to be a lot of trustworthy runs, and there's going to be some not as trustworthy runs. But it's interesting. So we've been developing a bit of a relationship in all of our research and understanding of the solar industry. We've just learned how hungry these solar sales orgs are for leads. And that if you're not quite ready to jump into solar, you can actually start benefiting from solar. So that little note at the bottom there, did you know that you can start in solar by selling a warm lead? And you're not selling it, you would get the commission on it, or a commission on it, if the job is sold and installed. So you're able to ask the homeowner, hey, by the way, we know this is the perfect time to be considering solar, and I can see 2 other places on your block here that have done that already. Would you be interested in learning more about that from one of our partners? And you just make the introduction, and you could get that, you know, $1,500, $2,000, depending on the size of the job, as a commission if that job is sold and installed and goes right through to permit to operate, which is kind of that last step of getting things going live. So feel free to reach out. We've been, like I said, we've been interviewing hundreds of people in the solar industry as we've been building out our product for solar. We'd be happy to make an introduction for you there, because it's a great way to start and just to get comfortable, start to learn the language, start to get a contact, start to get your feet wet a little bit if you're not ready to start selling it or selling it and installing it. Again, love the notes that Steve had been making in there. Sounds like a super experienced guy. You know, grateful that he joined us today. And I know David Silverstein on here as well. David's got a fantastic company up in the Northeast there, and they've been doing solar for a while. So, but if you're not at that stage yet, there's other ways to start entering into the market where you can still profit from it.
Yeah.
Let's look at the numbers here. Go for it. Sorry.
I was just going to say one thing on that previous slide. It kind of goes to the, you know, doing that solar checklist as well. Leverage the tools that you have. In this case, it's, you know, my soapbox for CompanyCam. But if I complete that solar checklist and I don't sell solar on that first job, I know there's still value in that because I have the checklist completed. You can use the label feature in CompanyCam to label that as potential solar, whatever, so that further down the road, whether you guys are going to try to, you know, resell them, put them through a drip campaign like Ryan said, or if you leverage these relationships that SumoQuote can help you with, now I can easily filter down and say, okay, hey, here's 50, 100, 200 jobs that we've done where we completed the solar checklist but did not sell solar, and we've just labeled that as potential solar or something along those lines. And I think that's a really important thing as well. Start narrowing down, you know, the potential people that 6 months from now where you kind of have solar humming, I can go back and revisit some of those as well. So back to you, Ryan. Let's get into the real good numbers here.
Well, and I'm going to touch on, before I jump into that, I just threw a question out at Steve in the chat there because I'm curious what his response is. Just asking if they're using an EPC right now or if they're using in-house labor to get that solar install done. So an EPC, just to give a little bit of information on that side, EPC, I often think of them just as solar installers, but it's engineering, procurement, and construction. And so they're going to go through, they're going to be able to do a site survey for you if you haven't been able to gather all the information yet. They're going to do a solar design. They're going to be able to do the permitting for you. Like, they're going to go through with all the CAD drawings, everything that you need to actually get the install done, and they'll take care of the install for you. So Steve's using subs in other states or EPCs. I'm assuming similar, Steve, like that you're kind of coinciding. You might be doing the engineering side of it, because there can be stages in how much an EPC does or doesn't do, depending on rates that you work out with them as you're going through that stuff. But one of the interesting things is, think of an EPC essentially like a high-end roofing sub. In roofing, you get the materials delivered, they just show up, the rip and everything, you know, often disposing of it and, you know, then installing everything and you're done. An EPC is going to take on a little more detail for you on that install side and be able to be a bit more of an expert to make sure that things run smoothly as you're getting into solar. It's sort of a way to help ease you into solar there. Steve, we train our subs and EPCs to build to our specs. Perfect. Yeah. So there again, you're going to have different levels of what you agree to with your EPCs, but they can kind of take on something more fully. Or, as I believe Steve's talking about here, there's a little bit more that they own in-house because they've been doing this for so many years. And so then there's a different rate that they would likely have as they're going through with that stuff. But the reason I bring that up is, as we're looking at the numbers here and trying to figure out, you know, what the opportunity is, this was from a massive solar company. They're nationwide. They do like $1 billion a year sort of thing, but they gave us their data. And it was, you know, what their average EPC cost was. So if we're going right to left here, what's the average EPC cost by state here? what is the average net price per watt? And so as we're thinking about that, that's going to be really largely the profit that you can gain on things. What's your average dealer fee? Because financing is massive in this. We're talking about a monthly utility bill compared to a monthly financing cost. And so financing, we all know when interest rates have gone up, it's getting more expensive. The average adder per watt, again, things are priced per watt in solar as you're going through this. So the average adder might be microinverters, might be, the pitch of the roof, or anything in between sort of thing. And then ultimately you get to that average price per watt that you're selling the job for, including your financing fees, including all your adders, including what the baseline that you've got with your EPC and so on. So, and then you've got your average system size that's being installed across all these states. So I found this data was fascinating to me because it was real data that gave actual information and started to let me sort of get an idea of how much profit you could really gain from this. And if I'm going to simplify this just a little bit more, if we're just going to isolate your average EPC cost compared to your average net price per watt and have the difference there be your profit multiplied by your average system size, you're going to get to your average profit that you can make there. Right. And so when we're talking, this is profit where you just sell the job, hand it off to an EPC, done. Right. Stay communicating with homeowners, they're your customers, make sure they're looked after. But you can be somewhat hands off depending on the relationship you have with your EPC as you're going through that stuff. So there is a lot of profit. And when you think about, and I'll go to my next slide here, when you think about that average job according to Forbes in 2022, was 11,500, and I sort of threw in a average gross margin of 38%. I often hear retail, your low 30s, insurance, average insurance, and I know it can vary widely out there, but average insurance, you're often low 40s. So I threw in 38% gross margin on this to see the kind of profit that we could pull from a roofing job, and then to compare that to the average amount of profit from the jobs on the page before, and just how significant that can be, how much more profit you can gain, right? 227% more profit when you add solar to a roofing job. So there's just a massive benefit there. Again, trying to see that insurance and solar, there really isn't anything as comparable for how much profit you can add to your business in a simple manner type of thing. Gogan, I mean, this isn't just a roofing solar thing. This is any industry when you're trying to think about gaining profit, growing as a business. What do you think about, how have you seen that, whether it's with CompanyCam or others, just on ways that companies have tried to add revenue, and what the opportunities are like out there, and how you would frame something like this from your perspective and your experience there?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head when you were we're almost grasping for straws to find that comparable. Insurance might be the only, unicorn out there that's even similar to this, because, CompanyCam, we serve all the home service trades. And I can't think of a trade where it's hey, we're doing our normal, but if we just add this one piece onto it, and I don't want to diminish, adding solar on isn't just, a flip of a switch. It takes a lot, like we talked about, learning the terminology, adding your EPC or training in-house. But to be able to say, hey, we're going to go and add more than double what our normal profit margin is by adding this one thing, there's just nothing out there that even compares. And I think the other great thing is, you looked at some of those states and the numbers, obviously some states are way ahead of, adding solar than others, but we're still really new in this solar movement. And so as a roofing contractor, when you think about diversifying your business, it's yeah, we could go into windows, we could, do this, we could do that. We're still adding on new trades. We're still adding on all of these, same issues that solar adds, but solar just gives us such a much larger profit number. And as we're going to talk about here in a little bit, I think solar makes a lot more sense from a sales perspective of how you can position adding solar to the homeowner's property versus, some of these other upsells that, you're trying to do with other trades.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's a great lead in because we've got a few sort of examples of things that we've seen out there that we want to be able to share here, and then we're going to hop into a demo. So we'll be able to show you sort of how it works in SumoQuote, how we're able to tie in designs, how seamless and easy that stuff can be. But right before we jump there, there's kind of one last thing here. I found it very interesting as I was talking to some sales professionals out there that are helping roofing contractors get into solar. And shout out to Adam Bensman because he's really quite excellent at this stuff. But by adding solar, you can take advantage of letting a homeowner access a solar financing loan. And so those loans, whereas home improvement, you're often talking about a 5-year, maybe a 10-year. Solar, you're typically talking about a 20, 25, even 30-year financing loan. And so it really, pushes your payments way down. When you're talking on the insurance side, what you can do is you can take care of that roof for them, but at the same time, you can also take care of that utility bill. And so you can let a homeowner keep their full insurance payout on that roof and then be able to blend everything into a financing loan that covers it so that you're letting them keep a, $15,000, $20,000 check, at the same time helping eliminate greatly reduce their utility bill, and then blending it all into a simple payment that is really offset with that utility bill, that monthly cash sort of thing. So that's a really fascinating way to start thinking about it as you're going through that and how you can position solar. One of the other great ones here was, I love this. In our beta program, we had somebody that was selling solar. And with that, what they did is they offered a small solar system with every single roofing job that they did. So they would do their good, presentation as a roof, their better as a premium roof, an upgraded shingle, and then their best as a good roof plus solar. And they'd put on like a 4-kilowatt system, just something to get the conversation started. So then with that, then the homeowner, they would be able to gauge interest from the homeowner. How much is the homeowner interested in this, wanting to go through this? And if they do, now I'll do a full design for them and really start taking them through. On the first 5 quotes that he put out, 3 of them came back signed with roof and solar, which is unbelievable. I mean, 1, it's a 60% close rate with or without solar. And then 2, it's, 3 jobs of solar on your first 5 presentations. It's pretty incredible for numbers like that. So that is just such a massive opportunity and an interesting way to kind of position it as you're going through this stuff. And then the last one here, most roofs says specific technology. It should have been, the advantage of the, past customers. But roofs that are less than 5 years old, they're ideal for solar. And you might have hundreds, if not thousands of leads to start selling solar to as you pick and choose that timing. And Gogan, we were talking earlier about insurance timing versus solar timing with looking at a lead list on this.
Yeah, that's, back to your fire hose analogy. The great thing about solar is, especially if you've used your tech stack for a while, whether that be CompanyCam paired with a CRM, just CompanyCam, just CRM, whatever your tech stack looks like, you're able to go back 6 months, 12 months, 18 months and look at all the new roofs you've installed. Those are perfect. Now I control the faucet and how much water is going to come out. Ryan and I were talking, you can have, a 50 lead drip campaign with very specific call to actions, leverage the SumoQuote resources that are out there on, educating that homeowner. Because I think that's a big piece of this as well. And that's a big piece of all sales. Is not just solar sales, but roofing sales, whatever it is helping that homeowner become, an expert themselves, or understanding enough about what goes into roofing, what goes into solar, so that they say, I understand this and I understand why this is beneficial to me. But again, it kind of goes back to hey, let's look at our last 6 months or our last 12 months and find 50 houses that we would love to install solar on, and let's reach out to them and control how much your reach out is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love that education piece. Here, we're right at that point where let's hop into a demo so we can take a look at this thing. So let me go over here, and actually, before I get going with this, let me walk through this. So here's a SumoQuote presentation. This is a roof and solar blend because a solar presentation is very different than a roofing presentation. So with the roofing one, which SumoQuote's been doing for years, we've had billions of dollars of contracts signed in SumoQuote. I think we're almost a little over $3 billion in the last number of years here. So it works incredibly well. Client's house on the cover, pulled in directly from CompanyCam. Being able to have a nice introduction, talk about the business, explain why you're different. All this stuff is customizable. You can have marketing pages in here. So these might be different marketing pages for a solar presentation than a roofing presentation in what you want to talk about. We've got SumoQuote. We've actually got, I think we've got over 60 custom designed marketing pages like this one that you could add your branding and your colors to, and you can just adjust the text on it to fit. But we want to make it really easy for you to create all sorts of beautiful marketing pages to talk about your business. Gogan, this is the one. You were just talking about educating the homeowner. And I always think back to this job that I sold. This was a roof I was standing on back in 2015 after a storm. And I was trying to educate the homeowner on why we needed to install a cricket to help the flow of water off her roof because there was a dead spot behind her chimney. And as I was using those words, you could tell she didn't have a clue what I was saying. Nor should she understand that, right? And I wouldn't expect that she would be able to explain it to her spouse later that night. Like, I didn't know any of that language when I was getting into roofing. But this is where CompanyCam and SumoQuote work incredibly well together because you need to educate the homeowner, gain their trust, gain their confidence, and nobody else is helping explain it to them like this. And visually, picture speaks 1,000 words kind of thing. This is really, really powerful with that. So anyways, I just wanted to pause there quickly because I think at this point, Michael and I probably take it for granted that everybody knows how awesome SumoQuote and CompanyCam work together, but it's awesome. So just to throw that one in there. Here, so we've got a marketing page that we design. These are really a lot of these key talking points. So we just give this to anybody that signs up for solar presentations in SumoQuote, really touching on these key conversations. You can take these, create your own marketing campaigns or your own drip campaigns to your existing lists of homeowners and stuff like that. But grab this information because it's great information and great talking points as you're going through this stuff. So here's the stuff we needed to add to SumoQuote. So we needed to add a way for the system overview to be explained. How do we show your house, the design we've put together, that production consumption analysis, and make it really easy for you to visually understand all of this stuff. And this is a totally different conversation than how those roofing conversations go. But we've tried to make it very, very easy for you with grabbing all that key information. The next page, financial analysis. This is another new page that we had to build in SumoQuote to launch solar. So as people that are doing solar already would know in here, it is a conversation of cash flow when you're going through this stuff. So you're talking about what you're paying for your utility rates, and typically it's what you're going to be paying for your financing as you're going through this. Now, a few key things here to highlight. One is we're showing that there is a utility bill still, and we're pulling in data from their actual utility company. And the reason we do that is for transparency. We want to make sure that they trust us. We're not hiding things from them, and we're showing that there's fixed costs associated with the plan they're on, and we're going to pull those in. And not just pull those in, when we've got an escalator or sort of inflation rate that we're forecasting with this, and I think we've set it at 3% for this, we're applying that to their utility bill, so they see that growing here as well. But the big difference then comes in over 20 years, what happens to their electricity. And these days, it could actually scale a lot faster than a 3% rate. So you start to be able to show them, hey, look, after a certain amount of time, you own your electricity. Your system is paid off, and you've protected yourself against all this inflation, and you're protected your cash at the end of the day. You own your electricity with this. And then ultimately driving towards this number of, switching to solar is going to could save you $20,000 at the end of the day with this. And then just to sort of keep going through that financial analysis piece, we're also pulling in whether it's, the rebates and incentives. So the 30% federal tax loan, any additional state, tax credit, any additional state rebates or credits that they can receive. All that stuff can get put in here so that you can show them their net system cost as opposed to the total system cost in there. And even trying to reinforce it, at the bottom here, talking about the ROI of adding solar to their home. So there's a lot of different, very easy ways that we make it very visually simple to understand, to educate them, as Gogan was talking about, in going through and why solar is such a significant opportunity for them. Now, what we also need to do is blend in our roofing quote with a solar quote. And typically roofing is more of a project-based price, whereas solar, as we've been talking about, is more cash flow based. So we needed to pull in that cash flow conversation as we just did. Now, as we're giving this quote and we're doing this good, better, best options, here's our good quote with a roof. As we keep going through this, now we blend in directly from the system designer and we pull in what the system size is, multiply it by a per watt price, and we pull in a new section here to be able to blend solar and roofing together with this. And we can, have a premium roof as we go through this as well and talk about the advantages and everything else. And then when they're signing off, pick the package you want, pick the upgrades you want. This can be customized with additional things. Like there's a lot of flexibility with turning pages on and off, reordering pages, and all the different content, but just really seamlessly blending roofing and solar together with this. So now that we've looked at, I'm not going to go through the last couple of pages here because we're going to be a little short on time. What I wanted to do was I wanted to go over here and I wanted to show you, I've got a system design, and this is a 5.4 kilowatt system, 82% offset. Let's say, actually, let me pause there. Two ways to go about this. We can do a manual design. So I can go down here and I can type in what the system size is, how many panels, and drop in an image. I can do a little screen snip and just drop in the image here. So you could technically use any design tool you wanted out there, whether it's Solo or Aurora or Open Solar or any of these. What we want to highlight here, though, is True Design, because True Design is built by EagleView. A lot of roofing contractors are already using EagleView. And honestly, from a shade analysis perspective, there's nothing as accurate as True Design out there for being able to know what can be produced from a system. So how it will always come through from EagleView is it's always going to come through with the maximum amount of panels loaded on your roof. And so you can see here on the screen, maximum number of panels. We can take this, we can rotate it around. And what I want to do, I'm going to get off of that right now. I want to talk about that shade data for a quick second here, because that's something that's incredibly powerful with this. You see this tree here. In other tools, they're often guessing. They're often guessing at the location of the tree, the height of the tree, the shape or size of the tree, how close a building is, all of this stuff. So EagleView, because they're using aerial imagery and they're just taking that aerial imagery and they're stitching it together into a 3D model of the world, they're capturing actual shade data on this roof. So let me go through here and show you how I could design a roof with this. And again, I'm just going to touch on a few highlights. There's a lot of different stuff in here, whether it's panels, setbacks, designs that you can preset in this. But what I'm going to do is simply, I'm just going to turn off H as a slope because I don't want that. I'm going to turn off I, and my system size is shrinking as we go through here. I'm going to click in on this slope. I'm going to select a couple of these, right? And I'm going to delete those because I want to be able to show you, we've got a panel here that's 73% efficient. And I can basically take this, move it over here into the shade more, and it suddenly becomes 46%. And so what EagleView is doing is they're tracking every 6 inches on that roof is essentially a data point. And they're tracking the shade on every 6 inches. They're tracking it every 15 minutes across the entire year because the sun is going across at different trajectories and there's different shade on that roof at different times of the day, the year, everything else. So the accuracy of the shade data is incredibly accurate. On a bunch of these other tools, depending on who the user is that is positioning the panels and building it out, you're going to have a slightly different design isn't the right word, but essentially offset that you'll be able to create with it, depending on who the user was that was designing. With True Design, if it's the same, it's all the same data that's on the roof. So the same designers are going to be able to produce or different designers are going to be able to produce the same thing because it's all consistent data on here. I'm going to zoom out of this. This is too large of system size. Let's go. I think we were at a 5.3 before. Let's go to a 7.2. Let's assume that this homeowner had said, hey, we're going to be adding an EV. We're going to be having a kid or two. We know that our electrical use is going to be going up. So we want to, have a little bit more here. Now, I could go in here. I could toggle off some of these. I could shift them over here. So again, very, very user-friendly, very easy to use, and already sort of what a lot of roofing contractors are comfortable with a tech stack of EagleView, CompanyCam, SumoQuote, this stuff. Let me close this. And what you're going to see is back in SumoQuote here, I've got my 7.2 system size. And when I go over into this solar presentation, you're going to see that I've got new project data available. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to apply this. Okay, so now I'm pulling all that data in from EagleView, all super fast and easy. You can have all this stuff set up, right? Everything pulls in, 7.2 kilowatt system here. I should show you where I've entered in some of the consumption data. Typically, you would pull this off their utility bill, but all of your consumption data is in here. My financial analysis, everything's being calculated here. Let's say I want to sell this at 5.25 instead. And you can see down here, my numbers have updated and changed. So everything is being calculated as you go through this. Let me back out here to one thing, and then we're going to jump into questions right away. But I want to show you in project settings here, just because we've got solar turned on. Your energy data, here's your escalation rate that you can put in. Your utility company, we're going to look and see what their address is, and we're going to show all the utility companies that service that address, and we're going to show them in order of most popular to least popular, right? So we go to the most popular company, and then we go most popular plan to the least popular plan as we go through this. And here's where you could set up an average bill. And so this one is estimating annual consumption at around 14,000 kilowatt hours. Let's drop this down to 165, and it estimates it at 11,700 kilowatt hours. So we're going to go through and be able to calculate all this stuff for you. But I just want to show you, very simple to enter in, tons of data and information in the back end generating all this stuff, but makes it actually very easy to use as a user or to scale up your sales team in introducing this stuff. Whew, Gogan, sorry, I just did a lot of talking there, man.
The only thing I have to say is I remember probably 4 or 5 years ago, probably 4 years ago, and I'm a little disappointed that you didn't let me man the demo, because I remember the very first Highway to Hail, probably 10 minutes before you went on stage, and you said, hey, I'm going to need you to run through a demo here while I'm talking. And I got the privilege of running through a SumoQuote demo. I would have loved to do this one, but great information. You hit on it multiple times, but just having that tech stack of CompanyCam, EagleView, SumoQuote, it's going to help you sell more solar. I don't want to, get away from the point that all three of us kind of got our start and our, roots in roofing. So that tech stack is going to be perfect for you in roofing. It just carries right over into solar. I know we're kind of butting up against time here, but we did have one question that you answered on the very next slide. So we got that one answered. Few minutes here if anybody has any, final questions. Otherwise,
questions, and feel free to toss them in there, but I'll throw this out there for contractors that are looking at this and trying to figure it out. We've actually we did hundreds of interviews and trying to understand solar and really queue everything up to be an incredibly powerful solar presentation tool. We took all the content from those interviews and we've put them into a book. So we've built the Roofer's Guide to Solar. I'm going to drop a link to this page. You can just click on this and be able to enter in your information here and download this ebook. And it's an easy read, but it will make it far easier for you to understand what the opportunity of solar is and how to think about it and a lot of the jargon and what the opportunity is and all of this stuff. So I would highly recommend jump on there, download that ebook. Steve, I can see your question there. Does it do ground-mounted solar? SumoQuote will be able to present anything that you design. And so it'll be 100% dependent on the design tool. So if True Design, and I haven't asked them on ground-mounted solar, but if True Design does it, then absolutely. Or if you want to use data from Open Solar or Solo or another tool like this in order to get the data and then blend it into a roof solar presentation in SumoQuote, there's that manual way that I kind of touched on quickly where you can drop it in there in like 30 seconds and then do your whole presentation on a ground-mounted design as well and stuff. So yeah, that'll all be dependent on the design tool as we go through with that. Great question, though. Anything else that people have here? Because again, this would be, and Steve, it's a great comment on looking for sort of the single platform. The reason that we built this out was because people were looking for that single presentation platform, and it was really on the roofing side. How do we sell retail and how do we sell insurance? So SumoQuote, I could walk you through contingency agreements, insurance contracts, like, being able to add Xactimate into it, like all sorts of things where you can have a single retail tool, an insurance tool, and solar or roof and solar tool. That you've got this sort of single tool that can do all of those things for you with signatures and upgrades and all sorts of things. So yeah, that was a big part. And then we want to offer the flexibility for different design tools in there. By the way, anybody that signs up for, I typically see EagleView as the most accurate and not necessarily the cheapest price, but I'll tell you how they price their True Design tool. They're giving it for a very, very good deal. So your premium reports, I think they're often $50 kind of thing, right? Let's call it. They're Bid Perfect. The Bid Perfects, which replaced their Quick Squares before, it's $18 and it's based off of the premium report. So it's got the accuracy of the premium report, but it's giving you the overall square footage and the slope percentages and all that stuff. In order to get their True Design for sales, if you order it through SumoQuote, it's only $25. So it's $7 more to get a Bid Perfect and True Design for sales. And you get all of that stuff together, what I showed you here. And so incredibly affordable, especially when you look at how much profit you can gain. Like you sell one job and you've paid for SumoQuote and EagleView and CompanyCam for the year, like with how much profit can be available in a roof and solar job. So it really doesn't take much to like cover a ton of costs with this stuff and how seamlessly these tools work together. Gogan, I'm not seeing questions here, so
we timed it
anything
perfectly.
else from your side? Any final words?
No, as always, thank you so much for joining us, Ryan. Appreciate you. Appreciate SumoQuote and the relationship we have, and most importantly, thank you to everyone joining us. It's been my goal for a long time to try to bring as much valuable content to the space as I can, and having experts like yourself, Ryan, I think helps us do that. So thank you everyone for joining us. And I know I have one Canadian Chiefs fan up there at your house, Ryan, but let's go Chiefs tomorrow. Let's start the NFL season off right.
How to be, man. Yeah, you tainted my middle son into being a Chiefs fan, so he will be cheering for them. But thank you, everybody. It was great having everybody here. Really appreciative, and by all means, we'll make sure we reach out, get you a recording, and feel free to download that Roofers Guide to Solar as well. And we're happy to get you started in solar. So, Gogan, thanks so much, and William.
William.
I'll say, yeah. Yeah, it's good to get that in there as well. So
awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Ryan.